Shalom and greetings to you all. It was birthday week this week, as my dear friends Rosanna and Renata both initiated this cusp of the new year as they thumbed their noses at time. They each know the secret of getting younger, not older, and I'm going to have to learn that secret myself. And speaking of the new year, remember we're only 1 week away from the Chinese New Year, the year of the rat. And whether you're a horse, a dragon, a rooster, or the all-powerful tiger, this is the beginning of a cycle. So it heralds new things for everyone. And since it is a lunar calendar celebration, it marks the new moon. And this will be the new moon of Aquarius, a time to reach for the heights and channel the words of God through you to everybody you know. And next week, of course, we'll be having our monthly Rosh Chodesh, our new moon observation, and we will celebrate the new moon, the new year, the new you. And we'll be having a lesson in creating vision boards, which goes along with Aquarius. Popular topic with so many, and it's open to anyone who wants to join. So if you're thinking of it, send me an email. Or if you're just interested in knowing how to put together a vision board, send us an email. We'll send you instructions. Now, these monthly gatherings are always exciting, and people love the sense of community that's formed. Just as a community, we all gather, our group of like-minded, like-souled fellows seeking unification of spirit. It's not a religious thing, it's a human thing. The collective consciousness of seekers come together in a showing of faith, of love, a community, a chavura, fellowship, expressing our nature of kindness, compassion, thoughts, feelings, hopes, dreams, and wishes that unites us all in this community house of spirit, Beth Ruach. So once again, please to go ahead. Invite everybody, physically, psychically, emotionally, or spiritually, to gather and share from Psalm 133 to Hine Matov. Come together. Hine Matov. Shevet Gam Ya. Hine Matov. Shevet Gam Ya. How good and how pleasant it is for brothers and sisters together. Community. 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 Together. Because let's all spread love, goodwill, and fellowship to the world. We are a community, my friends. This is just you setting aside just a little bit of your sacred time in your sacred space to honor and converse with whoever, whatever you happen to believe in. It's a part of your kavanah, your intention, that you put out to the universe your goodwill. And you name it whatever you want to name it. And let's send some of that goodwill out to invoke healing and renewal for everybody. It floats through space and time, finding those in need. So send it out for those you know and for the souls and spirits of everyone you ever loved. So think of whoever that needs healing and renewal and love or just goodwill. Focus on them, call their names. It's not just for people. It's for our pets. It's for the earth. It is the healing of the world, the tikkun olam. It's part of our spiritual genetic makeup. So let's send thoughts and energy for health and renewal for everybody in need, for those in our hearts and minds, for Jen and Sherry, for Tali and Ellie, for Bob and David, for the all-knowing Star Master, for Ishtarovich and Alexa, for Chris, and for the bee. Friends, it is the kindness, the healing wishes, goodwill, and love we all send out. It just circles the world, finding those in need. So thank you, each of you, for all you do, for all you care, because the world is a world of spirit. And spirit, my friends, never dies. Makor HaBracha. May the source of strength bless the ones before us. Help us find the courage. Make our lives a blessing. The renewal of body. The renewal of spirit. Let us say, Amen. Yesha Baruch, let us all have our spirits renewed, my friends. This is the great prayer for healing in which we call upon God to heal as He has healed before. Yesha Baruch, may He who blessed. Let's all send and receive healing and renewal energy in our efforts to love, to share, to care, to grow. Because it's something we all need to do. Now, this week, we begin what I think may be the most powerful book in the Bible as we read Shemot, the names, but otherwise known as the book of Exodus. And it truly is unlike any other book in the Bible. like the pine trees lying in the winding road. I've got a name, I got a name, like the singing bird and the croaking toad. I got a name, I got a name, and I carry it with me like my daddy did. But I'm living the dream that he kept hid, moving me down the highway, rolling me down the highway, moving ahead so life won't pass me by. The book of names that's never referred to as the book of names, but we all have a name. Now we open with the fact that Joseph is dead. It's a repetition of what we ended, Genesis with, Exodus 1:6. And Joseph died, and all his brothers with him, and all that generation, and the sons of Israel were fruitful and swarmed and multiplied, and grew very vast. The land was filled with them. Now, in the second little report of Joseph's death, the focus is not on the mummy in the coffin, but on the dying out of a whole generation, and this propels us forward in historical time, 4 centuries, according to God's prophetic revelation to Abraham back in Genesis 15, to a moment when Bnei Yisrael, the sons of Israel, or Jacob, have swelled to become a people, the Israelites, which is the meaning of that Hebrew phrase, from this moment on. And just like is in traditions of the ancient Near East and elsewhere, the future hero is threatened with death by the evil king and is saved by being hidden and then rescued. So while the book is about the formation of a people, it's through the eyes of one man, Moses, a man who remains somewhat distant from us, that we never get the sense of intimate acquaintance with his inner life, his family, his relationships, and his distinctive traits of personality that we are so memorably afforded in the stories of Jacob and Joseph. We are observing a people who have fallen into a state of slavery. Freedom, just a memory at this point in time. I was born here, and I'll die here, against my will. I know it looks like I'm perfect, but I'm standing still. Every nerve in my body is so vacant and numb. Can't even remember what it was I came here to get away from. Don't even hear the murmur of a prayer. It's not dark yet, but it's getting there. And of course, for those who've read it, you may recognize the noble poet borrowed the first line from the Pirkei Avot, the Ethics of the Fathers. But boy, did it get dark in that land and with those people. Now, there's a certain correlation between the distancing of the central character and the distancing of the figure of God in Exodus. God in Genesis, as one sees him in the garden story, and as one can quite clearly see his encounter with Abraham, as he walks about the earth looking very much like a man, indeed being easily mistaken for a man. In 3 instances, we don't know if Abraham's talking to a man or not until he chooses to reveal this identity. It's only when he says, hey, I'm God. And at some points, he engages human beings in what is clearly represented as simply face-to-face conversations, right? We see that in Genesis. We don't see that in Exodus because the God in Exodus has suddenly become unseeable, overpowering, and yet he becomes brilliantly shining. Barriers to access accompany him everywhere, just as they will be instituted architecturally in the tripartite structure of the sanctuary that he orders the Israelites to build. Now, the first manifestation of God's presence to Moses is in the anomaly of the fire burning in a bush without consuming it. Then the divine voice enjoins Moses, come no closer. He proceeds to speak to him without being in any way visible to him. Fire, which portends potent energy, which is something one cannot touch without being hurt or destroyed, is the protective perimeter out of which God addresses Moses and the Israelites throughout this entire book. All of Mount Sinai will be smoking like a firebrand, celestial fireworks of lightning and thunder crackling around its peak when God reveals the Ten Commandments, the Great Epiphany, to Moses and the people. Later, as we see in Deuteronomy, for its own theological reasons, it picks up dramatically and amplifies this image of a barrier of fire around God at the defining moment of revelation. Now, God in Exodus has become more of an ungraspable mystery than he seems to Genesis. We don't understand who God is anymore. He's different. It's not the same God. And as he moves here from the sphere of the clan that is the context of the patriarchal tales to this new arena of history, his sheer power as supreme deity and his mercilessness against those who would thwart his purposes emerge as the most noticeable aspects of his character. Now, the culmination of this narrative is, of course, the Sinai Epiphany, and that makes the mountain itself incandescent and rake the sky around it, summit with divine fire. The climax of the story is set of this, legal injunctions that are written in stone, but it's not anticlimactic. Framed as a series of imperatives, the second person singular, God addresses every man and woman of the Israelite nation personally as they express the keenest sense of urgency. And even today when we read them, we take them as a personal thing. Now, in many ways, the first part of Exodus is almost like the first part of Genesis, not in terms of style or content, but in terms of how much is contained in one reading. Where do you start? What do you focus on? There is so much there. Exodus 1:8. And a new king arose over Egypt who knew not Joseph. Well, it's 400 years into the future. No one knows Joseph. This leads to a discussion that there's too many people. And if war broke out, they might join the enemy. And so to ensure that this does not happen, Pharaoh charged his whole people, saying, every boy that is born you shall fling into the Nile, and every girl you shall let live. We grow up thinking the reason was this foretold story of a deliverer to free the people. And that, of course, is simply designed to feed the Moses legend. Friends, there's always themes you can notice. And the overall theme in the book of Exodus is, of course, the Exodus itself and all that entails. The fight for freedom, the fight to overcome fear, the two biggest, the formation of a nation, the development of law and society. But there is this incredible underlying sub-theme in the book of names, and that is names and the whole idea of names. It was all that I could do to keep from crying. Sometimes it seems so useless to remain. You're the one who always tried to change me. That is why I'll always stay the same. And I'll hang around as long as you will let me. 'Cause I never minded standing in the rain. You don't have to call me darling, but you never even call me by my name. Names. Now we're told there's a new king who knew not Joseph. He didn't know Joseph. We do not know who the king is. There's 5 pharaohs in the Torah and none are named. Now I've suggested in the past that Pharaoh here is not named because that would make him a specific individual. And I know people really spend a lot of time trying to figure out who the Pharaoh was in order to prove the history, but you got to look at it differently. If it's a specific individual, it takes away from Pharaoh simply representing fear and slavery. We will meet Moses, and it is through his eyes that this entire story will now take place. And we never know Moses' name. We're introduced to God, And he tells Moses his name, and we never use it again. Exodus 2:1. And a man from the house of Levi went, took a Levite daughter, and the woman conceived and bore a son. And she saw that he was goodly, and she hid him 3 months. And when she could no longer hide him, she took a wicker ark for him and caulked it with resin and pitch, and placed the child in it, and placed it in the reeds by the banks of the Nile. She bore a son, and she kept him 3 months. We don't know his name. She never tells us his name. She then placed him in an ark, and we think of it like a basket, not a boat. It is a tavah, a box, the exact same vessel that Noah built. A little smaller, but it is the same. We think of Noah in a boat. We think of Moses in a basket, but they were in the same kind of structure. A tavah. We all know, and we read. Pharaoh's daughter finds the basket. Moses' sister offers Moses' own mother as nurse, and the deal is done. And the woman took the child and weaned him, and the child grew. She brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became a son to her. And she called his name Moses, for from the water I drew him out. Now, when she says he became a son to her, it's not about an emotional attachment, which I'm sure there was. No, this is a specific term used to refer to a formal adoption. And notice that Moses' mother kept him for a whole weaning period, which is several years. He must have had a name. How many years can go by where you don't call your son by his name? And Moses does not actually mean from the water I drew him. Moses is an Egyptian name or term meaning true son, used with another name. And that would have been to prevent anyone questioning his birthright. Now we then have that incident where he kills an Egyptian, flees to Midian, where he performs the betrothal ritual. We've now segued into a new phase of his life. He's ready to hear the voice of God and begin the most incredible spiritual journey imaginable, and he receives the greatest invitation in history. Exodus 3:1. And Moses was herding the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, priest of Midian. He drove the flock into the wilderness and came to the mountain of God, to Horeb. The Lord's messenger appeared to him in a flame of fire from the midst of the bush. And he saw, and look, the bush was burning with fire, and the bush was not consumed. Now we know Horeb and Sinai are the same. The burning bush, what an invite. And our first glimpse into God's calling card for Exodus, fire. It will dominate the rest of the book. We then have that famous double name calling that I mentioned before. And God called to him from the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, here I am. Remember I told you that the double name calling and the answer, here I am, always signals a life-defining moment. And this was a life-defining moment for all of us. He listens to what God has to say, which is to go down to Egypt. And Moses is busy saying, like, why me? He doesn't want to go. And Moses said to God, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and that I should bring out the Israelites from Egypt? And Moses said to God, look, when I come to the Israelites and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they say to me, what's his name? What shall I say to them? And God said to Moses, Ayeh, Asher, Ayeh, I will be who I will be. And he said, thus shall you say to the Israelites, Ayeh sent me to you. Now we now know God's name. He's just told Moses his name. He introduces himself, of course, in the first person, I, to Moses. But when Moses tells the people, he changes it to he. And God's name forevermore is a third person, singular verb that says he who created, he causes to be, or better still, he who brings things into being. Yahweh. Exodus 4:10. And Moses said to Yahweh, please, my Lord, I'm not a man of words, neither yesterday nor the day before, nor since you spoke to your servant, because I'm heavy of mouth and heavy of tongue. Now, this is frequently taken to mean some sort of speech defect, and it's often translated as slow of speech. And there's a very famous midrash, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, that goes so far as to recount the origin of Moses' speech impediment in a story that pictures him burning his tongue in his infancy in the Egyptian palace. I love that one. I rank it up there with Jacob being a Torah scholar, 1,000 years before there was a Torah, or Leah ripping into Jacob for his deception of Isaac. Now, people will swear up and down how Moses had that speech impediment and how he got it. Whereas maybe he just didn't speak the language. Moses' protests may perhaps be best understood then as being on the grounds he does not yet speak Hebrew. Now, one of the things we are taught is to seek words or phrases elsewhere in the Torah to find out what the meaning may be, because words and phrases are connected. Well, there actually is one, my friends, and heavy of tongue. This very same phrase refers to nations who speak foreign languages. Oops, that's not what people necessarily want to hear. But it now makes sense why he would need Aaron with him to be his spokesperson. Moses is now ready for Pharaoh. He is 80 years old. Yes, my friends, the world is sacred and so is everything in it. Express your gratitude. Light a candle, make a wish. Celebrate your life and the lives of those you love. Share your feelings with them. Live free, be free, honor your freedom. Be well, be happy, and be blessed. Share and honor the light, and all who live in the light and continue to shine. Continue to send everybody you know goodwill and love. Pray for peace and freedom for everyone, and end to terror and hatred. Remember, friends, we are a community. We learn together, we celebrate each other, we love each other. We share this right together, men and women equally, so let's send out love, not fear. Send out peace, harmony, goodwill, and healing to all who need it. And please do, learn to forgive and learn to love. Open your hearts. Honor the relationships of your life. Tell those you love that you love them. Take advantage of the time you have. We take the twists and turns and the patterns that weave through the fabric of our lives in our own effort to grow, to learn, to be, to love. So please do love. Now, bless you all. Have a fantastic week. Getting ready for the new year. Week of love and light, a week of peace, a week of miracles. Examine your intentions and use them to imprint your will on the universe. Because we set in motion everything that happens in our lives. Our intention, our kavana, our cause, our effect, everything's linked. As I've said, you always have time to forgive and to be forgiven because you have the knowledge of what's good and bad. So acknowledge what you've done wrong to yourself, to God, and to any person you've wronged. And ask forgiveness, but do so with sincerity, accountability, and vulnerability. Forgive those you've hurt. You should learn to be forgiving and compassionate. Because the secret of forgiveness, compassion, and peace, my friends, is in acceptance. Can you accept yourself, other people in the world just as they are? Can you accept life as it is without trying to control it? If you do, you can experience the peace that acceptance brings. So do not stop your journey. Do not stop moving towards your promised land. It's your home. Keep on dreaming, keep on being, keep sharing, keep shining, keep teaching, keep spreading joy and goodwill, and do not follow fear, follow love. It's always in front of you. And remember to have faith. An unwavering adherence to principle. Just as I have faith in the principle of love and of all of you, act with purity of heart and mind. Despise none, defraud none, hate no one. Cherish all. Honor every child of God, every creature of the earth. May all people know peace in this year. May you nurture kindness and love everywhere you go. Work to be present in the body. Expand your heart and quiet your mind, because the deepest source of real power, my friends, lies in your consciousness and your ability to be mindful, to be aware, to be present in all of life's circumstances. So make the most of your time in this life and continue to touch and transform lives around you, because you're never alone. You can transform everything. Embrace love, not fear, forgiveness, not anger, and be there for someone, because someone will always be there for you whether you know it or not. Continue to explore faith and belief in what they mean to you, and do not accept shame as a natural state. Whatever you feel others have felt, whatever you've experienced others have too, we share together. We learn together, we help each other. We are each of us trying to find love and acceptance and support. We all have or could have that special someone in our lives, so find them. Tell them what they mean, and remember, you're never alone on your journey to your promised land. Watch your words, because they will hurt you, they will heal you, they imprison you, and they do free you. Keep forgiving those you need to forgive and asking forgiveness from those you need to ask forgiveness of. And listen to the voice of God as he, she, it talks to you, because you will be called upon at some time. And friends, you may think you do not know the real name of God, or that you cannot just talk to him as you would anybody else you know, but you can. And he knows you. You know my name. Better look up my number. You know my name. Look up the number. know my name. You know my name. You know my name. Look up the number. God knows your name. He knows everybody. Have a wonderful week, my friends. Think about and get ready to make a wish on the new year. Read this book of names. And I will see you all real soon. Shabbat shalom and blessings to you all. Take care. Bye.